Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching Security Scan with me, Frank Rausen Pereira, filling in once again for Vishal Daya, who's out of Delhi on election coverage. Now, Navy Chief Admiral Sunil Lanba on April 20th launched the third ship of Project 15B, a guided missile destroyer Imphal, at Mazagon Docks in Mumbai. The launch marks yet another significant milestone in the records of the Indigenous warship design and construction program of India. With a launch weight of 3,037 tons, the vessel made its first contact with water with full fanfare during the launching ceremony. Project 15B ships feature cutting-edge advanced technology and are comparable to the best ships of similar class anywhere in the world. These ships have been designed indigenously by the Indian Navy's Directorate of Naval Design. Each ship spans 163 meters in length and 17.4 meters at beam and displaces 7,300 tons. These ships will be propelled by 4 gas turbines to achieve speed in excess, of 30 knots. The P-15B destroyers incorporate new design concepts for improved survivability, seakeeping, stealth and maneuverability. Enhanced stealth features have been achieved through shaping of hull and use of radar transparent deck fittings, which make these ships difficult to detect. P-15B ships will be equipped to carry and operate 2 multiple-role helicopters. These ships are an example of the Make in India philosophy. On this edition of Security Scan, we will take a closer look at INS Imphal. Joining me on the program today are Vice Admiral Satish Soni, former Commander-in-Chief, Eastern Naval Command. Also with me on the program is Ajay Banerjee, Defence Correspondent of the Tribune, and Major General Ravi Arora, retired, Chief Editor, Indian Military Review. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of Security Scan. General, I'd like to begin the program with you. Let's first try and put it into perspective and understand what INS Imphal is.
We have at the moment 11 destroyers. These are the Kolkata class, 3 of them, the Delhi class, 3 of them, and the Rajput class, 5 of them. Now, Kolkata class is the one which is designated Project 15 Alpha, and Vishakhapatnam class is Project 15B, 4 of which are under construction. The sanction was given in 2011 for 29,340 crores, which is approximately $4 billion. It will affect a saving of $1 billion each on each of these 4 ships. Now, this is an improvement on the Kolkata class. It is of indigenous design. It is being made by Mazagon Docks Shipbuilders Limited, so being made domestically, although we have received a lot of foreign help in its designing and some of the weapons and some of the systems and sensors. We can come to that later. But Mazagon Dock itself now has considerable expertise. Right from the time when in 1968 it took on the first of the frigates to manufacture, it was the Nilgiris, to now when it has made 25 ships. The challenge in making these ships is integration of the weapons. Now, why is it called a guided missile destroyer? Because basically its main weapons are guided missiles. Let me count them for you. It has got 2 magazines of 16 tubes, making it 32 cells which are armed with Barak 8 anti-air missiles. It also has 2 magazines of 8 tubes, making it 16 cells for the BrahMos land attack cruise missile or anti-surface missile. These are the main weapons. Of course, it has one 127mm Auto Melara gun, and besides that, it has got rocket launcher, the Smirch kind, and a few other weapons like the close-in weapon system. But basically, it is these 32 Barak 8 and the 16 BrahMos missiles which are its primary weapons. So it's called a guided missile destroyer. Some navies call it just a destroyer. The nomenclature, official nomenclature is DDG, or the NATO nomenclature. which actually translates into designated destroyer guided. The armed forces have a habit of giving such names.
Right.
But basically, this is why it's a guided missile destroyer.
Okay. Talking about names, I'll come to it a little later as to how the Navy comes up with these names, Vikramaditya, Imphal, and so on and so forth. But before that, let me bring in the Admiral into the picture. Admiral, as far as the INS Imphal is concerned, how is this destroyer different from the others, and what is it that we look forward to as far as the INS Imphal is concerned?
Well, first of all, let me put a few things in perspective. That INS Imphal is the biggest destroyer that the Indian warship building industry is making, and we must go back to see that it was in 1961 that we first made INS Ajay by GRSC in Kolkata as a small patrol boat, and then we made the first Leander class frigate in 1972. It was commissioned in Bombay, made by the MDL, and then we designed our own frigate, INS Godavari, and she was commissioned in 1983. And then the biggest achievement that we have to our credit, that is of making a destroyer, came in 1997 when we commissioned INS Delhi. Essentially, modern navies classify ships according to the tonnage they displace, and destroyer is the biggest warship apart from the aircraft carriers that the shipbuilders make. And destroyer is typically, you would say, upwards of 6,500, 7,000 tons, and they are of course multi-role. But below that we have the frigates, which would be smaller in size, maybe 4,500 to 5,000 tons. And then we have the corvettes, which would be maybe 2,000 odd tons. And then we have patrol boats and so on. So coming back to say Visakhapatnam, then we had the Visakhapatnam class, which is the Project 15 Alpha, which is the next, to which the INS Imphal belongs. So this is the 15 Bravo. So this is the third in the series, the first destroyer being INS Delhi class, which was Delhi, Mysore and Mumbai. And then we had the 15 Alpha, which was Kochi, Chennai and Kolkata class, Kolkata 3 ships. And now we have 4, of which the first 2 have been launched, Visakhapatnam and Mormugao, and Imphal is the third one. So how does it differ from the previous ships? I think what happens is as the warships have been built, each warship is better than its predecessor, and each class of warships are better than the previous classes. So INS and the thrust of the Indian Navy has been on indigenization. So I think there comes in the biggest improvement which is taking place in the warship building industry, and by the efforts of the Indian Navy, our military industrial complex, our design teams. And today we are very proud, the Indian Navy is very proud to say that 90% of Imphal in the float category is totally indigenous.
Right.
And about 60 to 70% in the move category, right, is indigenous, and in the war fighting category, 50% would be indigenous. So the BrahMos missiles, the Barak 8, etc. Now there is a lot of indigenous component in it. But in modern warships today, what is increasingly important is that their ability to stay in the battlefield at sea. That means they should be, they should be so designed that they can participate in a war where there is a nuclear, chemical, biological threat. There are distributed power systems. That means in case of damage, they can, sustain. There are increased stealth features. If you see the, picture behind you, they are contours. The radar waves which are reflected in such a manner that the...
So all conditioned ships basically is what you're suggesting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Okay, let me bring in Ajay Banerjee into the picture. So after hearing all that's been said, Ajay Banerjee, what does it say about India's indigenous? What does it say about India's indigenous shipbuilding capabilities, really?
Frank, I'll firstly add one thing more to the ship's capability, because there is a new kind of radar on board. This time we are trying out a new radar. This radar is an electronically scanned radar. It can scan 360 degrees, and it is also wired in to fire the air defense missiles called the Barak. As General Arora pointed out, the number of barracks out there. So in case an enemy, what happens at sea is, in case the enemy airborne threat is coming in, that could be a missile or a drone or a helicopter or a fighter jet, the Barak can be fired using that. Those very radars can be automatically fired at that incoming threat. This is one of the aspects. Talking about indigenization, which you ask, the Indian shipbuilding industry, led by the Mazagon Docks Limited, it's a public sector undertaking under the Ministry of Defense, is doing very well, deserves a pat on its back. However, I will add a caveat. We need speed, Frank, and that speed is when I study China. China is building ships like nobody's business. A new aircraft carrier has been set afloat within 4 years. An aircraft carrier is 6 times the size of a destroyer. So they have built an aircraft carrier 6 times the size of a destroyer in 4 years. So I think we need speed. We are around 2 years behind schedule in this Project 15 Bravo, that is the Visakhapatnam class, Visakhapatnam, Murmagao, Imphal, and the 4th one. We are around 2 years behind. So I think we need to be 2 years ahead instead of being 2 years behind. That will be the real success story of indigenization, Frank.
All right. Okay. We need to be 2 years ahead is what Ajay Banerjee is suggesting. General, how do we do that? And more importantly, of course, you spoke about how India has received help from outside, really, as far as indigenization is concerned. What is the kind of help that we have received?
Yeah. See, for the Project 15 Bravo, they say 65% is indigenously sourced, 35% is from foreign sources. Starting with it is designed indigenously by the Indian Navy, the design directorate, but they took help from the Russians to actually modify and refine the hull design because of the stealth features that we wanted. And the Baltic shipyard of Russia also provided the shaft lines for all the 4 ships of this class. Then, the Barak 8 missile is a joint development between India and Israel. But the rocket launcher, there are the Thales radar, some of the sensors, the AISA radar, which Ajay Banerjee spoke about, these are all foreign sourced. The BrahMos missile is a joint development, India and Russia. Dhruv helicopters are from HAL. The Hamsa sonar is from BEL, developed by DRDO. L&T played a major role, as did a lot of others from the private industry, in providing the PLM software, the control panels. Much of the ship management has been provided by L&T. The main gun, 127 millimeter, is an Auto Melara gun. So when you consider all these things, of course, no ship can be 100% made indigenously. There is no point when superior stuff is available. Integration is a big challenge. And as I said, now some of the frigates, the stealth frigates, Project 17 frigates, Talwar class frigates, they were made in Russia, but the Shivalik frigates were made in India. So we have a lot of experience, and we have done a lot of indigenization when it came to producing all these stealth frigates, which are modern world standard naval warships. So that experience has gone into it, and today we can proudly say that even this 65% indigenous content is quite high, satisfactory, and very motivating for the shipyards.
Absolutely. Right.
And we have a large future requirement of stealth frigates, destroyers, corvettes, smaller ships, auxiliary ships, which is according to the naval plans. This indigenization is going to play a big part in it.
Certainly. From a layman's perspective, Admirals, just so that we can understand the entire issue in a holistic manner, what is the role really of a destroyer, and what does a destroyer carry with it? or on it?
You see, today, as I said, that navies, modern navies, they classify ships depending on how big they are, essentially, now, in the olden days, you could say that frigates had a narrower role. There used to be anti-aircraft frigates, anti-ASW frigates. Well, I suppose today also, to some extent that is correct. But by and large, you would see that the navies are equipped with multi-role frigates. That means the frigate is really essentially able to do all kinds of roles. Now, destroyers typically are ships which are bigger in size, which have longer endurance, which have longer sea legs, which have a bigger complement of ships, which have more say missiles, both land attack and the ability to defend not only themselves but also a group of ships. So they are the ships which really would in some ways project power, right? Defend a flotilla, right? Be escorts for an aircraft carrier group and stay out at sea for a longer time. Now, one thing about not only Imphal but about our other ships, which is very important, which has not been discussed, is the combat management system which are on board the Indian naval ships today. A combat management system is essentially a system on board the ship which takes in feed from the sensors, all our sensors, and controls, the weapons. Not only the sensors which are on board the ships, but also take in feed in from the sensors of the fleet, and also the ability to control, hopefully in the future, the weapons of other ships. So a combat management system is really the heart of war fighting these days, because you get very little reaction time. Today the missiles are faster, they give you lesser notice at sea, you have to be very quick. So if you have a good combat management system, you are certainly at an advantage. And the combat management system of these ships has been developed in-house by the Indian Navy, and it has taken them a long time. But today, we can very proudly say that the combat management systems of all our destroyers and frigates, they are to a great extent compatible with each other, and they are able to manage the weapons and sensors.
Right. So, Ajay Banerjee, in your opening remark, you spoke about how we need to really speed up the pace of our shipbuilding. But if you look at our destroyers, how do our destroyers compare with others around the world?
See, Frank, what happens, I'll take on what General Arora said. We are, as a country, very worried about our indigenization content. See, no country produces an entire warship or an entire plane. They all are integrating weapons and equipments from elsewhere. Okay. On a serious note, on a rather bigger picture note, I would say that we need an engine to start off with. We are using a LM2500 engines on most of our warships at the moment, which is imported. We kind of call it a kind of an agreement to make in India. Some parts are completely knocked down, kits come and they are integrated out here. But I reckon we need an engine. That should be the first focus of indigenization. When we talk about our growth in terms of number of warships, we need warships turning at a far, far greater pace than what we are doing at the moment. Why we need this pace is because we have to match a growing Chinese Navy, which is increasingly coming into the Indian Ocean. And if we claim that we are supposedly the net security providers in the Indian Ocean or the leading power in the Indian Ocean, then we rather be there out at sea with our warships. In the past 2-3 years, Navy has done very good work on the eastern front, that is the Straits of Malacca, Straits of Sunda and Straits of Lombok, where we have periodic patrols. These patrols named periodic, but they are like 24/7 patrols. To explain to our viewers, the Straits of Malacca and the Straits of Sunda and the Lombok are major trade routes, sea trade routes into China, Japan and Korea from the Indian Ocean when you head towards the east. Now, Indian Navy patrols them as a matter in the open seas. Now, to patrol them, you need warships, you need trained men, you need long legs at sea. As Admiral Soni pointed out, long sea legs means the ability to stay long days at sea. Now, the ship itself has to have some capability. 2, you need a turnaround basis, which we have signed up with the French and the Americans for a kind of logistics exchange memorandum. 3, we need fleet tankers. Fleet tankers means which carry fuel and water to replenish a warship at sea. Like even now, the naval exercise which started off today with the French of the coast of Goa has 2 fleet tankers, one of the French and one of the Indians. It has 2 aircraft carriers. It has got submarines. No, the scope is increasing for us. All international navies want us to do work with them. For that, we need to be right up there. We are reaching up there. Our ships are right up there. What we need more is, Frank, I repeat myself, speed. We need to be 2 years ahead, not 2 years behind, Frank.
Okay, all right. Speed is something that you're emphasizing on really, and we need to speed up. 2 years, we need to be 2 years ahead is what you're suggesting. General, closing comments now from all my guests, starting first with you, General. You know, I was intrigued by the names really of some of these ships, you know, especially the destroyers named after cities. How does the Navy come up with these names? Is there some kind of a science behind it? What is it really?
But there is a nomenclature committee headed by an assistant chief of naval staff in the Ministry of Defense, and they have representatives from the historical division of MOD and from the archaeological department of the Ministry of Human Resource Development. But the principle is they name ships after mountain ranges, after warriors, after cities, after weapons. And so you find like the Leander class, which Mazagon Dock built, all of them were Nilgiri and, all the Giris are the mountain ranges.
Yes.
And so all the ships ended with the Giri, named Vindhyagiri and things like that. There are ships named after cities, Delhi, Mysore, Kolkata. There are ships named after weapons, Tir and Kukri. There are the rivers, Godavari and Beas and so on. So I think it is recognizing the diversity of India when you name ships, and that is why Imphal has been selected. Imphal is a city in the northeast, which was a battlefield in World War II, and it recognizes the valor of the army, and it recognizes the contribution of the northeastern states. So I think it's a good gesture. But in conclusion, let me just say one thing.
Yeah, sure.
Something leading on from what Ajay Banerjee said. It's time we considered the Chinese model and took on manufacturing frigates and destroyers on an assembly line. Chinese have manufactured 50 copies and 60 copies of a particular destroyer or frigate. When you find that the design is proven, it is effective, it is modern, why have 3 ships made here and 4 ships made in Russia? I suppose the requirement is that we take too much of time and we need ships in a hurry, so let the foreign shipyards make them. But if you have an assembly line, definitely things will come off faster and you will get quality stuff and you will get standardized stuff if you have one type of frigates and one type of destroyers and one type of corvettes.
All right. So that having been said, Admiral, so what's in the pipeline really as far as the Navy's Directorate of Naval Design and Mazagon shipbuilders are concerned?
To begin with, I would say that the Navy needs more money. What Banerjee said about speed, it is only possible if you invest in your Navy. And today, with the requirements of the Indian Ocean, the requirement of providing security to our smaller island countries, with the importance of blue economy, with the importance of protecting the various sea lines of communication, with the importance to rebut the increasing presence of international navies in the region, you certainly need to put in more money into your Navy. And I would say that the Navy deserves a greater share of the defense budget, as indeed the defense budget itself deserves a greater share of the Indians' GDP. So let's hope that happens. And the other thing which I want to say with regard to the names is that, whilst the Indian Navy nomenclature committee specifies that destroyers be named after big cities in the Indian continent, and therefore having recognized a name in the northeast itself, I think signifies a lot. So I would, in my concluding remarks, only say that the INS Imphal represents the growing capability of our military industrial complex, which means not only in the Indian Navy, but the larger military national industrial complex and our ability to indigenize. And it also recognizes are the requirement to have a strong navy in the Indian Ocean to emphasize our geographical location.
Right, all right. Ajay Banerjee, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Imphal is the first warship to be named after a city in the northeast. It shows the shift in thought processes. I would also want that the Navy, as a layperson, would want the Navy names ships like, say, INS Patna. Why not INS Lucknow, INS Jaipur, INS Chandigarh, capitals of all the states in the country. And I'm sure the states will feel proud about it and connect more to the Navy, which actually is like an invisible force working out at sea. Having said that, I will bring it back to the naval part, the warfighting part. See, as our two experts have pointed out, Vice Admiral Soni and Major General Arora sir has pointed out, the need for how do we make and counter China? That is the most important aspect at the moment. The oil trade, everything is on sea. We are, please understand, naval warships today like the Imphal will have a land attack capability. I'll take you back to 1971 very briefly. We launched a land attack on the Karachi oil refinery and Navy bombed it. There were 4 Veer Chakras on that one flotilla. It was such a big event. Now, if BrahMos can fire from 300 kilometers, we need more such ships, we need more such men and who can launch a land attack from sea, because they are safe sailing flotillas, which are well protected by, say, a MiG-29 naval fighter jets, and they will launch a land attack from sea onto our enemies, which may not have those kind of abilities. I'm talking about the Western neighbor. China definitely has those abilities, Frank.
All right. With that, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of Security Scan. I'd like to thank all my guests for joining me on the program and sharing your views on this very subject. That's it from me. See you again next time.